music right now, but you know, I'm not gonna do that. Not gonna
You
do
is
that.
in the car.
I mean, I am in the car. That makes sense. So, you know, we're broadcasting live from the street today. This is your man, A&T the Hope Boy. I appreciate y'all tuning in with us today.
Thanks
It's
for the
another
Wi-Fi.
episode. Exactly. It's another episode of moMENtum for y'all. And just a reminder, moMENtum is a safe space meant to be a catalyst for the emotional, spiritual, and mental growth and development of Black men. We are currently hosting Facebook Live events with the goal to expand and evolve to additional platforms in the future. Like I say, I'm your host, Auntie the Hope Boy. I'm an artist, content creator, passionate about a whole lot of stuff. And I got an awesome group of people with me today to talk about some good stuff. So I'm gonna let y'all introduce yourself. I'm gonna start with my man. Wait, I can't point the right way. I look on my screen over there. Jay, go ahead.
Oh man, so I'm Jamal Eubanks. I've been on before. I've kind of done an introduction a couple times, but educator, entrepreneur, mentor, future author, and just somebody that's always willing to take an opportunity to learn more about myself and everybody else.
Future doctor.
Yep, Anthony does proclaim that for me.
Who we
So
got? Who we got
going
next?
down.
You got to point down or something.
Oh, point down.
Shawana.
Hey, all right, it's
Oh.
Shawana. I am, oh gosh, what am I? I'm a speaker. I'm an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur.
There.
Definitely a mentor. And you know, my goal in life is to empower women and promote sisterhood globally.
Go, girl,
I'm
grow.
pointing. Oh, wait, pointing.
I am Darian Henderson. I am first and foremost a child of God, so I find my spirituality to help center me in different conversations like these, and so I like doing anything that brings peace to my spirit. I'm also a teacher. I'm a special ed teacher here in Madison. Yeah, special ed. I'm also a coach. I prefer teaching younger students, but I will teach the big kids as well, work with them. Mentor as well. I've kind of tried to run from that, but as I've gotten a little bit older, realized that that's actually more of it's a gift, more of a job or responsibility. So I enjoy doing that. So yes, and Anthony and I am one of his assistant coaches. So I so love being on here and don't see him as much as I normally do. So I'm having a conversation with two of my sisters as well that I love so much and have helped me become part of the woman I am. And Jamal, you get a shout out too, because I've known you for so many years.
Hey.
So I love being here with you guys and talking about stuff.
Yes.
Who's next? Who's next, Darren?
All right, I guess it's me.
Over here.
Julian's not on
Yep.
yet. So hi, I'm Angela Fitzgerald Ward. I wear a bunch of different hats, like professionally. So public health administrator, not public health, public education, excuse me, administrator, college instructor, grad student, TV host. But also very importantly, I am wife to Mr. A&T the Hope Boy, bonus mom to some awesome kids. And I seem to have an addiction to buying t-shirts from Black-owned t-shirt companies. So here we have the marathon continues, Nipsey Hussle, his brand. So yeah, I'm trying to curb that a little bit, but that's been hard. But happy to be a part of this conversation.
Don't curb it. Don't curb it. So I wanted to say the reason we're doing this because we know as Black men, we're not going to get to that place of full understanding, full maturity, full growth without Black women. Right? We wouldn't even be here without Black women. So like, let's first acknowledge that. So tonight we wanted to invite some sisters in here to talk about stuff, to communicate, help us learn and grow together. So I want to read a little something to get y'all brains working and thinking, because tonight we're going to be talking about vulnerability in relationships. Like vulnerability and relationships with your significant other, with your partner, whatever you want to call it. So we want to be dealing with that, right? I'm a man, and so I deal with it from my perspective, but I understand that might not cover everybody who might be a part of this conversation. And so feel free to add your voice to the conversation. So it's Brene Brown. We're going to draw something from a TED Talk that she was doing. And she said, being vulnerable means sharing the most important, authentic parts of yourself with someone who matters to you and risking rejection. Being vulnerable means being seen for who and what you are and exposing yourself to the potential for hurt. While this may sound intimidating, the alternative is often worse. Being closed off can lead to loneliness and feeling unseen and unknown by others. When couples are emotionally intimate and feel close to each other, they are much more resilient, more tolerant of each other, and generally kinder and more respectful. And then my wonderful wife just threw this on because this is how her brain works. This is especially important to consider within the Black community where historic and systemic racism can pose barriers to relationship success. I know it was a whole lot. She put a little thing up there. What are your initial responses, takeaways to that little quote from a TED talk that I read? And anybody feel free to jump in.
I
For
think
this,
we all will.
say that again.
Go ahead. Nothing,
No,
go
I mean,
ahead.
just based on what you have there, being vulnerable means sharing the most important, authentic parts of yourself with someone who matters. I mean, I completely agree. I mean, that is vulnerability. Vulnerability is true intimacy. Is basically, I mean, it leads to that actually, acceptance and whatnot. So once you give of yourself in that way, you build, a more intimate relationship, a more accepting relationship, a more supported relationship.
What you got, D? Sound like you was about to say something.
Well, I like the part I kind of nodded when you said about rejection. I've talked to a lot of different men about like fears or just things that they don't like, or just either trying to get to know them or just as friends. And a lot of men like rejection, like failure of not having something, failure of not being good enough. And I think for Black men specifically, the idea of not being good enough starts at what age? 3, 5, 7, 8. Like, you know what I mean? 9 months, depending on some boys. And so I think that's, the idea of rejection and men putting themselves out there to be rejected. I think the idea of like not even wanting to put yourself out there to be rejected because they naturally get rejected without even taking that step. And so when you said that about rejection, it kind of just hit because I'm like, yeah, like, man, and because like I'll talk to guys like, oh, why didn't you come up and talk to me? I ain't want you to like diss me. I ain't want you like not. So you were just gonna look at me across the room. Go ahead, Jamal.
Yep, that would be that has been probably one of my biggest fears ever in my entire life is fear of rejection. That could be fear of rejection from taking risks on anything, whether it be talking to a woman that I've seen and I've been interested in, to taking chances on different business opportunities. So just that fear of rejection is something that's tough. And I've heard people tell me, oh, you'll get used to it. I've never gotten used to it. That is still something that is a struggle for me.
But you still do it though. You still do it anyway.
It's taken me a long time to get to that point, and I'm still not that confident as I've been told I should be.
Yeah.
Jamal, why do you think you have such a deep fear of rejection?
Shit, because it happened so much early.
That's true.
Like when you were a kid, or like when you were just like a young man? I mean,
all the above. Like like I said, not having, I've said it before in other episodes, but not having a father figure around, or reaching out trying to get him to interact with me, come visit, whatever the case is, and it not happen. Having mentors, as helpful as they were, but not necessarily stick around throughout the duration or times when I really, really needed one. So, I mean, it's run the whole gambit in my life. And then I tried to get to a point where I'm like, I depend on myself to try and make things happen. And so that has affected relationships because I won't lean on somebody that I should or could and have been told I should and can.
Yeah. I mean, when I was researching it, I found out that a lot of rejection comes from childhood trauma. you know? And so, Darian, what you were saying just makes so much sense, you know, specifically with men, but it's, you know, it's both women and men. But yeah, it starts so young and we don't even realize it. And so we can actually, as like, even as a parent, as a mom, like we can actually help in this, you know, now with our children, so that it impacts their life differently in the future. And, you know, and I do the same thing, just encouraging my kids the same way. You know, I'm a mom of all girls. I don't have boys. But I think that would be a serious conversation to a, you know, a son of mine, that I would have, just so that in the future, you know, he doesn't have the same, you know, situation that you're going through, Jamal, you know, because it's tough. It's tough.
And I think sometimes like that rejection, right? Like when you learn, like Jamal, I think this is maybe if you agree with what you've worked on getting through is words of affirmation. Oh, I might be echoing. Words of affirmation before that rejection could be up there, right? So before I take a step, before I even go do something, I tell myself, like, before I even wake up in the morning, it's going to be a good day. I declare this and this. Even if it's raining outside, I'm still gonna have a good day, like this. So then I go into it. And I think for rejection, it's kind of like that. Or we have to learn, men have to learn that if you get rejected, that's not a reflection of your self-worth.
Right.
It's just a reflection of that situation maybe not being what you needed, maybe not being good for you. It does not mean that you're all, and I had to learn that in basketball. That's the hardest thing, because the coach was like, you just go out there and give it your all. You give it your all, you execute, you'll win. Coach, I did. I gave it my all. I did everything. We still lost. Like, and so learning that even when you give it your all, you can still lose is one, a life lesson, right? Like, you can do everything right and still not make it. And that rejection, I think it's hard. I want to speak for Black men, but what I noticed being raised by a Black man, you're always battling what rejection you're willing to take for the day. Because like I said, my dad can get rejected from things that he never even wanted. He never even tried to do.
It could be at some point it becomes an internal battle.
Yeah.
Like you battle with yourself to even, do I even put myself out there to put myself in a position to be rejected, which is the vulnerability piece that we've been discussing the last
I know. Like, this is literally making me think about like cultural things of being culturally responsive or culturally relevant. Because anytime we talk about relationships, we talk about vulnerability, we may need to have like two different conversations. Like there's the mainstream conversation, but then there's the how does it apply in the cultural context of me being a Black person in America and being in a relationship with a Black man or a Black woman in America, given the history of Black people in this country. Because things don't automatically translate, because we know the histories of the dominant culture are different than the history of our culture. Like, no shade to Brene Brown, we pulled out her quote because she's an expert in this field, but she's a white woman. So how does her perception, her ideas of vulnerability, how does that translate and apply within a culture that she doesn't belong to? When you have the incarceration rate of Black males, meaning that the selection pool looks different, and then the process for Black women looks different, and how they pair up and what that means on the back end, it looks different. So how do we successfully navigate through the relationship space, knowing that our experiences look different and not necessarily upholding ideals that may not even fit within our cultural landscape, right? So
shout out to my baby boo right there, dropping the knowledge.
No, because that's real. Like,
my executive producer right there. So I will say for me, I know exactly where, like Jamal was talking about fear of rejection, I know exactly where mine came from. The minute my mom became addicted to drugs, and like that became more important to her than me and my sisters. So in my young mind, right, she chose this thing over me. And if the woman who's supposed to love me the most in the whole world could turn her back on me, then anybody can. And so why am I to trust anybody to care for me or to love me fully when the woman who gave birth to me would not? So that was, I know when mine started, that was right in the moment. And So, you know, Shawana said it, like that childhood trauma. I was like,
Yeah.
I became a performative person at that moment. I was going to do whatever it took to make people like me so that they wouldn't walk away from me. So that's, yeah, I know when that moment was for me.
It's pretty deep.
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah, because I say the same thing. Like, I know I said in this conversation talking about men, but as a girl with dad, like I was that way, like being raised having a Black father. So like I've always learned, and I've had more conversations now in the past like 2 months with some people, and really having to reflect that like my view of Black men is very different than the average Black girl. I've heard from a lot of friends or just a lot of people on Facebook that like they're hurt by Black men. Like Black men do not show up for Black women like Black women show up for Black men. I think that was the sense that I was getting from a lot of Black women. And for me, I was like, I validate that because like that's your feeling, but I didn't see it that way. I saw Black men as a positive. They were positive. They were strong, even if they had their flaws. They did this, but and so like you guys said, as I got older, and when I saw my dad let me down in areas or not be the things that I thought he could be, like Jamal said, I started stepping back and being like, well, if my own father can't speak to me like this, why I think some other dude is finna do this? And like you said, then like, or even how Angie said it, like, how do we get the knowledge of the person that's in front of us or the information and how they're feeling so I can see it through their eyes and they can see me through mine. And then you can, you know what I mean? You can kind of have that understanding of where the other person is coming from. I tell my friends all the time who aren't Black women who date Black men. If I have white girlfriends that are dating Black dudes, I'm like, okay, but there's some things that you need to learn about Black men first. There's just some things that you need to know about a Black man that he might not really know about himself, but it's a common thing. These are just, and I don't know if that makes sense, but because it's not just, oh, he's just a man. Black men cannot just be in the category with every other man on certain things. I don't believe. I think there's a lot in there.
So here's what because I want to get us into this first question, and the first question is right is definitely will be personal to you. What does vulnerability look like in a relationship? What does it look like for men versus women? So from your perspective, your opinion, what does vulnerability look like in a relationship? Is there a difference for men versus women?
Yeah.
For me, I mean, I think like I said before,
wait 1 second. Did we put the definition down there yet?
Yeah. Oh, she didn't put it up there yet.
Good call, Jamal.
He be coming in sometimes. He be doing the right thing.
Fellas, trigger warning.
This one.
Do you feel triggered by this definition, Jamal?
No, but it took my mind to a bunch of different places.
I think because all men always focus on the negative.
Right.
Exposed, like woo, what?
Look, he felt vulnerable just reading the definition.
So what bothered you about this definition, Jamal?
It just was like stating desires and how you can be judged by your desires. You can be judged by your intentions, and you can be told to get out of your feelings if you show emotion.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just like, it's so much that you can take negatively, especially if that's all I ain't gonna say all, but you've experienced it enough times where you like, I'm gonna hold back.
Yeah. So, okay. So for me, like I said, vulnerability is being open, being free with your emotions and your desires, Jamal. But again, I mean, I think what it does, and I think I shared this with you guys earlier, is it allows for true intimacy in a relationship. It doesn't, there are no barriers anymore. And there, like I said, people hold back from being vulnerable because of fear, of being judged, being rejected, feeling uncomfortable. But I mean, if you think about it, just share, especially if it's with a partner and someone that you truly love and you trust them, You should be willing to open up, and that truly builds, a stronger bond in your relationship. You're more accepting of this person. Once someone opens up to you, you can understand them a lot better. There's sometimes someone to say something, you're just like, man, he's just this person, or he's stubborn, And I've said that before, just about my husband, like, oh my gosh, he's so stubborn. But when I stop to really ask questions about, okay, why did you say that? And he goes to explain it, it makes so much sense. Because he's like opening in ways where he's just, if he's just used to saying, nope, I'm not going to do this. But then he breaks it down to me and I'm just like, oh, okay. Now I'm more accepting of him, more supportive of the way he feels because he was able to be vulnerable and open up to me. So,
but what happens when that person that you really do trust and love and you open up to them, and then you still end up with those feelings of the judgment and the just kind of throwing your feelings to the side? Like, that's a different level of pain that you just like, you know what?
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, you should know this person well enough to see if you're ready to take that risk. You know what I'm saying? You know who you're with, and just based on, even if it doesn't have to do with you, how they talk about other people. What kind of relationship they have with others. I mean, you should know that. You should know that person you're with well enough to know that you're able to open up to them or not. Because there's sometimes, there's people been in a relationship for like years and they're just like, I cannot tell him X, Y, and Z.
Or he don't know this girl, or
yeah.
she don't know about that. And
that always blows my mind. Like, I'm like, y'all been together for how long? 5 years, and he doesn't know that about you? Like, whoa, there's something missing.
And some people put up a representative of who they really are, or who they want you to think that they are.
Yeah, one day it's gonna grow old though. You can't fake it too long.
You can't fake it forever. And when you find out who they really are and you take a step back and you just like, oh, this is completely not what I was expecting or thought I
didn't fall in love with this person.
So maybe that leads to like a pre-question then. So before you jump full force into vulnerability and being vulnerable, what are the signs or the indicators that this person is trustworthy? That I can trust this person with my heart, that I can be open with them. So I'm not just being super open to any and everybody who's not able to handle what I'm going to share.
That might be the question of the millennium. I don't got nothing for you.
I don't know if this, people can take it and leave it. It works. It doesn't work for me, but it's how I have gone through things. And like I said, for me, the only person my first navigating, like I said, is my dad, where if I want to do a trial on Black men about something, I go and say something to him or ask him and just kind of navigate to see if I know what I'm saying. Because like Shwana said, it's somebody who knows you. I know my dad knows me and I know my dad loves me. So as a man, what I sometimes would do with my dad and with guys, if I'm in a relationship with them, I will, and it's not a test, like I'm trying to test you to see, but I'm going to be vulnerable, but I'm going to also be very descriptive in what it is that I'm looking for. So when I become vulnerable, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it's just how I've processed sharing information. I'm going to tell you something. I'm just sharing this so that you know where I am. You don't have to give me, and I let them know I don't necessarily want your advice on it. I'm just trying to be transparent, and I'm letting them know I am being transparent. I am trying to be vulnerable. I'm going to share something with you. Then I do that. And then I kind of gauge, and it's something small, right? It's not like my biggest secret in my life or the most deepest thing, but that, and then I try to gauge how he responds. Does he ever ask me about it again? Does he ask me any more questions? Does he try to get to know that? Does he even listen to me? But what I'm saying is because I'm asking him for that. So can you follow me and me being vulnerable? I'm not asking him to be vulnerable, but can you even allow me to be vulnerable? Because if a man can allow me to be vulnerable, there's no way he can. He can't be vulnerable with me if he can't even allow me to be in my feelings.
Facts. Yeah, I agree.
So right, if a man, y'all get offended, I'll be like, I don't even tell men to get out their feelings. I'll just tell them that they're in their feelings and they be insulted. Now I'm in my feelings.
Hey, Angie, why you laughing?
Because Anthony got man feelings.
Yeah, and Ward know when he be in his feelings. We know. Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's something I've personally had to work on. And Jamal, when you were like, well, what if you say things people are still judgmental? Like I've done that to Anthony. I've had to check myself because he is admittedly more sensitive than I am. So things that I could receive, he may not be able to take. So just because I'm like, oh, I could take this, let me say it to you, doesn't mean it's gonna
Very
land.
Very true.
I have to be like, okay, let me like filter maybe the response that would seem natural and okay to me in a way that's like, what's the best way to share this with him? And to me, it kind of coincides with the love languages piece too. Like, what is the recipient's love language? Like, what's even the best way to package this message so they're receiving it in a way that's coming across as loving and supportive, as opposed to, well, this is what you just need to know. You need to take it, keep it pushing.
And that's what I mean, knowing that other person and communicating. And I think as women, I think communicate maybe differently than men. And I'm very direct. So it's like, I'm going to say what I, if I'm looking for you to do something or act a certain way, I'm going to say exactly what it is I'm looking for. And
so just so people know, Darian is very intimidating. She's 6'1" and can fight.
Oh my God, first of all, don't do that.
She is tall.
We're trying to build community. I am not intimidating, and I am 5'12". Thank you very much.
5'12". She said 5'12".
No, I'm just kidding. Darian is a great person, great soul. She is very forward, though. She will listen to what she's feeling. She said 5'12". And
she's trying to say she don't want y'all to know she's 6'1", but
I'm not 6'1". I wish.
Sound better.
But guys, I would say this: because you never know what people have experienced and what they've gone through. Like the first couple of times, like Angie said, man feelings. Like that was like, so as me trying to break out of the stereotype of not being in touch with my feelings. Like when she would say that, I'm just like for real? Like why they just like? I'm like, and I would say to her, why aren't they just feelings? Why do they have to be man feelings? Because is this something new that men don't have? Like for real? Like I like.
Because we like to be petty once in a while.
But no, that would. But for me, that was a whole struggle. Like I'm not trying to be the stereotypical man. So why are you like? So to me, like why are you trying to label my feelings? Their feelings, like everybody else has. Like so, that's something that we like going back and forth with. And I think like those words do have power, especially when you're trying not to be the norm and you're trying you're trying to break free from stuff that you grew up that wasn't good, right? Like
I mean, I think that point is really valid, Anthony, because I think when you say that, when you just said that in the man feelings, Angela, I think about there have been times where, as you said, I'm just like, dang, that was so wrong. Where like I remember, I used to shoot weddings as a photographer. I would shoot weddings, and I remember standing there taking pictures as the bride walked down the aisle, and I had to shoot the groom while the bride came down the aisle. And this groom was, you would see a groom like tearing up and going like, oh, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. This man was like, I mean, like boo, I mean, like ugly cry, and like I wanted to take my camera and throw it at him, for being so emotional, and like I'm just like, come on, dude, like man up. And when I think about it, it was wrong. It was completely wrong, and it reminds me of the same why you got to be in your man feelings type of thing. And we don't realize that it's okay for a man to show, be overly emotional, and it's okay. Why is that so wrong? And I had to literally check myself about that and that was really recently this year having a conversation about the same thing. And I'm like, you know what? I need to change that, because I've always said I don't like to see a man boo-hooing. He can shed a tear. I mean, I understand, like if it's death related, I get it. But like when you see, like if I see I'm so sorry, but watching a sad movie.
And you be laughing. See, I can't watch black men cry. It be making me sad.
I see a black man sitting next to me, like, like I'm gonna have a problem with that, and I need to change that. Like,
but Shawana, you saying that is like a reminder, I think, to women how much power we can have like over our partners in ways they may not always like express, because there's so much put on the opposite direction in terms of like, well, men do this to women and blah blah blah, and this is how our emotions are impacted. I feel like it goes the same way. Like we could say something that's like a jab, and we just think it's like whatever, but to them it's like,
because
oh my God.
Think like he's a man, he can handle it,
right? But that could like
it's just me, like that's
right. So, and he may not show it because man feelings.
Yeah,
like what like our responsibility. It's like what our responsibility is.
They just feelings. They're not man feelings.
They're not man feelings. We're trying to remove that.
You're just feeling, and I tell them like you're in your feelings. But Shwan, I think that's so funny you said that about a man crying because I'm on the completely opposite. Don't let me get married and walk down the aisle and that man ain't got tears in his eyes. He better
But
be.
it's not the tears.
See,
It's how is he crying?
y'all on both sides of the fence. Because I know when you was just saying it, I was Joanna. As soon as you were saying, I'm like, I better not cry. We're gonna stop the whole ceremony if I feel a tear coming. Like, oh, we need to take a pause.
No, but it's okay. That's what I'm saying. It's
Like,
that was the old me. The new me is, you know what? It's okay to show your emotions. It's okay.
That was less than 6 months ago.
Yes, it's the new me.
We can change.
But no. You can change a lot in quarantine. Like for real, you can be a whole new human.
Oh, I did.
You know how much I've changed in quarantine. You just won't. I mean, like I said, you can go ahead and cry, and I will not. I mean, I'll remember what I used to think. I might laugh a little bit, but I'm not
and
going to
that's
think
the
about
thing that gets brought up. That's gonna get brought up 2 years later when we get into an argument. No.
You was crying. Remember that time you was crying because I called you bald headed?
I mean, but you know, it is wrong though. Seriously, I mean, because it's okay. Because you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering. I need to ask my husband this question: if when I cry, how does he feel about it? If I'm sitting there watching a movie and boohooing, like, does that make him feel like she's weak? Like, what's wrong with her? Or is it acceptable and okay? Like, hey, babe, come here. Because I can't ever remember a time of me crying over a movie and he was like, hey, babe, come. It's okay. You know, it's more like, you cry?
Yep, that's how I was raised. I was 7 years old. Me and my dad get into it and I'll just start crying. He'd be like, girl, go to your room if you finna start crying. I'm not talking to you if you're crying.
Hey,
Well, I already know. So like tears, but there are some women who talk about like the vulnerable who manipulate that, and they'll manipulate their tears and manipulate emotions in men. And so that's why I was gonna ask Jamal when he said something before, and Anthony as well, is like, when do you guys, like, we talked about like, you know, when it should happen. What was the question, Angela, that you asked? Because you asked one. The first one was when to trust them. Okay, that's what it was. I wanted to know, you guys, when do you feel like it's the right time to be vulnerable, or what are things about a woman that you're like, I think I can trust her with my emotions?
I ask a lot of hypothetical situations to kind of feel a person out to see what happens, what's going on, or what kind of response I would get or should get, or kind of out. Yeah, that's me. I'll do hypothetical situations to kind of gauge.
for me,
I'm listening.
for me, I just kind of like what Shawana said. I'm gonna be who I am, and I just pay attention to the response that I get. So that's how I approach it. Like,
see, and that's a different level of vulnerability. I'm doing hypothetical because it ain't gonna hurt me too much depending on how you respond, because it's not a real situation.
But is it really not going to hurt you though? Because think about it. You're doing a hypothetical because you want to engage in that kind of situation. So like, for example,
just in case.
Yeah, it's right.
Yeah,
You might want to, but if that reaction is like if you said, you know, it's not what you want.
It's not something that I was expecting or wanting.
It's still going to hurt.
It won't even hurt. I just won't be opening up the way that I probably would have wanted to with the person.
But here's my question. Why, when being vulnerable, why can't we be, like I said, yeah, like Jamal, you called me out. Yes, I'm very direct. I function that way. Why can't men be direct in being vulnerable? Like, why can't you give me, like, why can't you ask a woman or tell a woman what it is that you're looking for, so that I know exactly what it is? You know what I mean? Or are there different layers to when we can?
Because I know for me, there's been times where I have actually said what my intentions were and have been shot down before even getting a chance. And I'm just like, all right, well, I won't come.
So you're trying to give guidelines. Yep.
I mean,
and you're trying to give the guidelines, and she was like, not happy.
I think
and so the question,
the rejection piece.
The question for you guys then becomes: getting into relationships, once you're in it, is there such thing as being too vulnerable? Like,
I think so.
Great segue. I like that one.
Is there?
I think so. I think so.
Wait, the question is there such a thing as being vulnerable when you're in a relationship?
Too vulnerable.
Too vulnerable.
Too vulnerable.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
But I think women do it more, right? I think women do it more than men.
You think women are more vulnerable when
I think women, we struggle with being too vulnerable, and I think men struggle with not being vulnerable enough.
Yeah, I agree with you. But yeah, no, there's definitely such a thing as being too vulnerable. Like sometimes it's just like, I mean, I've been in that type of relationship where it's just like every single thing, but it was more so on like, you know, what you said, you know, even to tell someone that you're hurt about something, that's being vulnerable, you know, like what you said just now really hurt me. Those words you used, you know, just rubbed me the wrong way. You know, I need you to apologize for this. And so if you have somebody who's always, you know, saying every time you say something, it's, you know, and that can be too much. I think it's good to tell a person when they hurt you. But if every
time I decide to be myself and have a conversation with you, your feelings are hurt, I ain't gonna say nothing.
Exactly.
The Bible says being offended is a sin.
No, but I agree with you. I mean, that's going to be a hard conversation to have. You know, if you can't, you know, if every single time you say what you have to say and it is a problem, yeah.
Well, and that's something that even that person needs to figure out. Because I think women. I know that I struggle with trying to figure out how to be vulnerable, because if I let you in my bubble with like all four of you guys, at one point in time, I've had really deep conversations about my life. You guys are four people in Madison that I consider friends, family, like real close to me. And I've trusted you guys, right? But it wasn't like I just randomly walked up to y'all and was like, oh yeah, here. It was like through that.
Build up to that.
And I also saw something in each one of you guys when I shared that I knew you guys could kind of lift me in that area. You know what I mean? But I also know that as a Black woman, as a biracial, as a brown woman, for me to figure out where I'm too soft and where I'm too hard. Because if I'm too hard, if I walk around too strong, now I'm the independent Black woman who don't need no man and this and that. But if I walk around too soft, I'm getting played left and right. Like I have definitely trusted men way too easily. And my friends be like, girl, you trust too easy. I'm like, girl, he told me he had a girl. Like he told me he had a girlfriend. I know he had a whole wife. I didn't know how to ask for that. Like, you know,
look, I didn't even know to ask about that part.
Man, boy.
I think what
that's a whole nother conversation.
When we talk about like vulnerability, I think a big part that causes us to like stumble and struggle is that people haven't, you know, Shawana talked about it earlier, like this trauma that we experience in childhood. People don't really deal with that, right? And so like they suffer it as children, but they don't really begin to deal with it even as adults.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what's impacting what's happening in relationships. So when we say, right, somebody is sensitive whenever we say something, that could be because, right, they haven't dealt with the fact that that thing that you're saying or communicating is pushing a button that's connected to some childhood trauma. And because we're not able to talk through that, we find ourselves, you know, because here's the biggest thing they used to, like in relationships, that people would say to me, that's just how I am. That's just me. And I'm just like, well, that's mean and that's evil as hell. So you cool? Like, so because I want to change, right? And I know some of my behavior might not be good. So I'm not just going to say I might say that's what I learned and I need to unlearn it. But like, to just say that's just how I am. Like, I think it's a lack of like dealing with whatever we experience, which then makes vulnerability an issue because we can't really freaking ask for what we want because we don't really know because we ain't dealt with some other stuff that we dealt with before we got here.
Yeah.
Yes and amen.
Really?
Whew, that's a lot. I agree with you. So going back to like, I definitely, Jamal, this is for you. Like, as I'm thinking about this is coming out, you were talking about, you know, you were not open because of the rejection part of it. Are you, I mean, like, And this is probably like what Anthony was talking about too, just the childhood trauma or being rejected over the years and coming to this point. Like, in order to get over this, though, what are you willing to do now in order to, I mean, are you willing to try a little bit, you know, things differently? Like, forget the hypothetical.
I take every situation that I go through as a learning experience.
Yeah.
I definitely, Anthony always tells me I have to have a drink when I do this because I open up a little more. So that's why I'm having this. But I'm open to those conversations now, just in general.
Yeah.
Like before, I wouldn't be open to talk about too much of anything that dealt with me having opportunity for somebody to get to know me or
Yeah.
for me to be let down, heard, whatever the case was. I kept it to myself, and I've felt like in relationships since I've been 30 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I have given those opportunities. Now, has everybody taken advantage of it in the positive way? No. I've dealt with situations where people will, take your kindness for a weakness or take things that you say and use it against you. But I am the type of person that everybody who I deal with I'm not going to use something that I've been through against the person that I'm dealing with.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
So yeah, I fresh start. Take what I've learned from previous relationships and move forward and use it as a lesson learned more than a failure.
Yeah. And I think another way to get to know if somebody is okay with who you are or what, like being vulnerable, is when they ask you a question, to answer the question, as opposed to saying, I'm fine, like just answering the question. It's, another way to just kind of feel them out. Like if they say, how you doing today? And you're struggling, say, I'm struggling, today was really rough with me at work and because we're so used to saying I'm fine because you just don't want to talk about it, don't want to get into it. But like, and it doesn't have to be, because I think like once you can have simple conversations like that, then getting deeper, when you're in a relationship with someone, getting into deeper conversations become much easier when you can deal with the simple conversations. And if they can't, if you answer a question and start going into your day and they're like, I was just asking you, like kind of shut you down and you can't finish that conversation, then this person is not even worth me going any further with, I remember a guy one time, and all he wanted to talk about was how, oh, you're just so beautiful. Oh, I just love the way you look. And I'd be like, today I was really sure, oh, let's just not talk about work. Let's just talk about like, girl, you just look so good. And I could not, that was like the last conversation I had with him, because I'm like, he's not willing to even just get a little deep. Just talk about my day. Like I was stressed about this. So
I also hate I'm not going to say hate, but don't like necessarily like when you do ask, kind of some of the common courtesy, or, you'll ask me, hey, how was your day? And then they'll go into their day. They'll never ask you how your day was.
Yeah.
You just sit there like, all right, moving on to the next
topic. And it's a whole
topic.
conversation about
and
them.
It's just a one-sided conversation.
Yeah. I get that too. That makes sense. That makes sense.
And unless that's go ahead.
No, you got it, Darren.
I was gonna say, because unless, there's sometimes like even with friends, right? Like I have some girlfriends where sometimes the conversation is just checking in on them. Or I have a friend call me and she's like, how are you doing? And I go and I'm like, girl, he did this, or girl, this. And 20 minutes later, we're getting off, and then I'm about to the phone. I'm like, I'm sorry, babe. I'm like, did you want to tell me something? And she'll be like, no, girl, I'm just calling.
But at least you said it. You at least checked in with them. I've been in conversations where no matter what, at the end of it, whatever they got the chance to vent about, they don't ask how you are.
But that's what I have those friends, like we said, like I put people in my life that know me. Like I will tell you who I am and I will remind you, but after a while, I just need you to pick up on it, because I'm not going to constantly remind you. So like, my intention is never to not do this, this, and this. Your intentions are this. And I think having those clear understandings, those clear conversations, like Shwana said, just even asking someone how their day is. Like, I saw this one meme. It was like, girls don't say they like you. They just start asking you what you ate for lunch and about your day or something. Cause it's like, we just want to know. And for me, I'm just like, you'll know that I'm into you because I just want to ask questions and I just want you to talk. But a lot of guys, they don't. They just want to know everything about me. And that's nice, right? You feel good as a woman because you're like, okay, you're asking about my day and doing this. But then
But
I've
it has to
noticed that
end
I'll
at
have
some
guys
point.
that I'm like, what about your day? What about this?
Right.
Oh,
It's,
it's fine.
it's supposed to be a
It's
shit
fine.
reciprocal.
No, but
You
they
know,
don't want to talk about it. They're not trying to
that's-
like dive into their day, right? So I'm being vulnerable and I'm opening up and being transparent. But then when I'm like, so tell me about your day. It was
Good.
fine. Well, what
I
else
mean,
did you do in the day? Nothing.
he don't want to tell you about his second family, so he can't do that.
Well, you know what, Anthony?
it's
That's
too
not
soon.
helping me.
No,
It's
I'm
too
just-
soon.
I'm just,
Way too soon.
I mean, that's what it be. Like sometimes, like
And that's the thing where we're going back to talking about being too vulnerable.
I
And
can't give a
I'm with
hint.
that.
But that's what I'm saying. I
We'll
don't
talk
think
later.
you are being too vulnerable right there. Like that's just
Right, I
normal
want to know
stuff.
more about this conversation, Darian. I want to be in it too.
That's not a
Yeah,
real
we'll talk.
conversation.
We'll talk offline. Yeah, we'll talk offline. But anyways, but what I'm saying is that like, but it makes me feel like I'm too vulnerable, right? Like, so I'm feeling like you're too vulnerable. I go back. You tell girlfriends. I've learned now. I love my friends, but if you my age and you're dating somebody, you not who I'm going to for advice. You got to be at least 4 years older than me and have some kids. Because I'm like, nah, y'all struggling just like I am. But we start thinking about that. I start thinking that I'm too vulnerable. So then I shut down. And then there's Black men who are out there who want to be strong too. And then, like you said, we're finding this clash. And I think some of it goes into Black history in America, right? That's a whole conversation to unpack.
Right.
And not just like us in our everyday life, but real like generational ties of just hurt and pain and what's
Well, don't
coming.
forget, hurt people. Like we were talking about earlier, where like I might be in that position where I'm ready to open up and have those deep conversations, but you just came out of one where you did that and it backfired. So now you're coming into this relationship with me, and now I'm ready to be open and talking. You're not. And so now this cycle just continues to go on, and then we just end up in toxic situations when, both people were ones that at one point really wanted that open, vulnerable relationship where they could grow and build from it.
So,
I was
question.
just, are you going to
Go ahead,
transition?
babe. You got it,
Okay.
babe. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, because I know we were talking about, well, previously people being like too vulnerable and all of that. And I just wanted to add that for me personally, people that are open, like just naturally open, like to me, that's such a beautiful thing because that's not common. People just feel so comfortable and confident, just like being who they are and that not switching up based on who they're around. So I don't want anyone who is like listening to this and that's just your natural way of being to view that as a deficit or something. Like that's awesome, especially being a Black person in this country where you've never really been given the space to feel safe. The fact that you like are against that just through your personality is awesome. Now you may have to figure out like where and when, but just having that natural disposition I think is great. So I just want to throw that out there.
So babe, since you're one of the people on this call that's in a relationship.
Oh, is she?
The question for you would be, do you feel as though you got into a place where you feel vulnerable in your relationship? And if so, what did you do or what did it take for you to become comfortable and vulnerable in a relationship?
Oh, wow. I would say yes, although that's still developing in terms of feeling vulnerable. And I think it definitely took time because one, you were my first serious relationship as an adult. So like I had like, I guess what I thought was serious in high school and it just kind of was doing me. And then I met you and I'm like, oh, okay. So like even just navigating the relationship space when I was just like #single life, number one, that was, Shawana had to coach me through that. So like just even going through that transition was a lot. But then within that was a vulnerability part because I'd never been challenged in that way, not having been in a serious relationship. So I didn't really know what that looked like. And I thought in some ways that I was, but then talking to you, I'm like, oh, I'm really not. Like I can give you enough to make you think that I am, but then you're like, no. I want
There's
more.
more.
And I'm like,
Right.
I don't even know really how to get to that more because no one's ever asked for it or accessed that before.
Ooh.
So I felt like super uncomfortable. And in some ways, like I'm still working through that. Like person, I'm like, but I guess time you showing improving like who you were and that you were a trusted space, and being able to handle like my missteps in that way helped me to form comfort. Because I'm not going to say like I've arrived, like no, because it's been what, like 5 years? So I mean, okay, the muscle's being built a little bit.
It's been 5 years already?
Well, it'll be 5 years in August. Yes, it'll be 5 years.
Time flies.
It really does. Like, seriously.
Time flies when you're being vulnerable.
So, I mean, I'm building that muscle, but I haven't arrived. But I think just over time, that showing improving has definitely helped.
What about you, Shawana?
Oh man. The question is, do I feel as though I've gotten to a place where I feel vulnerable in a relationship? I am super vulnerable. And my husband knows that. I mean, I will tell him exactly how I feel. I am not afraid. You know, it's funny. I'm a Cancer, so typically Cancers are afraid of rejection. But when it comes to my relationship and me being vulnerable in it, I'm not afraid of that at all. Strangely. And I think because I trust my husband so much, you know, I trust that, I mean, there are times where he'll say things that I don't necessarily feel like he receives what I'm saying well. And I'll tell him right away, you know, if it hurts me or if his words, because I'm big on word sound having power, you know, and it can be negative or it can be positive. And I think like, I'm a very sensitive person. I'm a creative, you know, Anthony, you know this, you know, when you're creative, you're sensitive, you're very emotional, you're very passionate. Okay. That's another word to put. You're very passionate about stuff. And so I feel like I need to live my healthiest life is when I'm living my truth, when I'm 100% honest and open about who I am and how I feel about things. And that's, you know, Jamal, saying the things that you desire, you know, and, you know, the things that you want, you know, and that's really, really important. You got to tell your partner what you want. You got to tell your partner the things that you desire, you know, to see if they can, you know what I'm saying, that they can receive it well. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. I think there's strength in that sharing, you know, without inhibition. I mean, I think there's so much strength and beauty, like you said, Angela, in being able to be free with who you are and honest and open.
Me. I think I've definitely, so with guys, I don't know if y'all would agree with me or not, but it's a lot easier, I feel like, for men to compartmentalize. So there were areas of myself that I was very vulnerable and open about. Like, there's stuff about my story that, like, I don't mind sharing. Like, I've shared it with groups of kids. I've shared it with, but like, there's other places. And it's not the experience. It's the feelings around the experience that are more guarded. And so, I've come to grow more vulnerable in this relationship. There's definitely some areas, and I'm just going to, you know, call a spade when it came to like finances. That was not an area I was very vulnerable in, or I was afraid of my inability or lack of ability. And so I was not very vulnerable in that area. And so that is and continues to be one that I'm growing in. But I feel like there are several areas where we are absolutely that. And I feel like what I bring to the table as being a man is definitely more than the money I make. It's the way that I do communicate. It's the way that I do love. It's the way that I care for my family. It's the way that I communicate to my family. So I feel like I've grown in vulnerability, and that came from having to do it because I feel like my biggest failure as an adult was divorce. I felt like a complete failure because I had to get that right. And at a point in my life, I couldn't disconnect being a good father from being a good husband. And I realized that those two things could definitely be disconnected.
Yeah, for sure.
And so until I realized that was probably the hardest and darkest place in my adult life. And I know that I got there because I wasn't vulnerable, because I wasn't acknowledging who I was and how I really felt. And I just wanted to have something that I had never seen before, but I didn't have the tools and I didn't have the support system to make that work. And so now I feel like knowing more,
a second chance,
asking more questions. Like, I feel like I'm like I'm on that path. And I feel like one of the things that Angie and I did even early on in our relationship, I don't know where I heard it from. I definitely didn't create it, but we used to do this thing called free pass, or like I forgot. I think that's what we called it, right? Like, so basically, like we got like 2 of them a week, right? And that means you got a chance to say something, and the other person couldn't respond. They just had to hear you and listen to it. Like they could not respond to it.
Ooh, I need
And
to
so-
let me write that down. What?
That
was hard for me.
I was like 2 responses a week as a kid.
Oh, it was dope. It was so dope
I like that.
because and then we would do it like in good times. It'll be like, hey, boom, 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 boom. And then you could see her, she'd be like, can I ask a clarifying question? I'm like, nope. And she'd have to sit with that statement that I made. And it could be me attempting to be more vulnerable, or it could be me expressing to her a desire that I have. And she had to sit with it, because oftentimes we're ready to respond to what people say instead of actually listening to them.
Observing it. Yeah, absorbing it.
So that free pass really helped us out, because like I said, man, she said something to me one day and I was like, I think it sounded to me like she said I hadn't had sex in a long time. So I was like, oh, okay. And then we had a follow-up conversation and she was like, no, I never had sex. And I was like, like, hold up. Like, and I had to ask myself, like, shoot, is that something I want to be in? Because I've clearly had sex because I got children. And so, like, we talked about stuff that I, like, once I found out, I'm like, we've been talking about some pretty, like, adult stuff. And it's just like,
your light's going off.
Yes.
I need to see your face as you're talking. Oh,
I'm sorry. You know, the sun going down.
Okay.
My brother out there looking real chocolatey.
I'm like, I
Grow
can't
up.
see you. I want to see your eyes. I'm like, none of them people. I got to see your eyes when you talking.
Hey, this is,
all right, go ahead.
Just keep smiling.
My face. This is a book. Facebook. Follow me. Follow me.
So silly.
Follow me now. Follow me now. But,
Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Don't leave me.
Don't leave me. Don't leave me. So what I'm saying is, like, that helped me to, like, because I never thought I'd be able to talk about the stuff me and her talked about before we even got married.
Yeah.
Like, I had, like, real adult, and I'm like, so when she said that to me, I'm like, how would you even know to talk about this type of stuff and you ain't even, like, did it?
Because she trusted you.
Yeah, she like, I'm a human, fool. Like, I know.
She
like,
trusted you. She saw your heart, you know?
Yes, and that helped me to be like, yes, I can, because I know, I think out the box. I know I'm different. I know I would say, hey, what do you think about this? Like, or, you know, different things. And it's like stuff we still talk about now, and it's funny. And she's like, oh, you ain't forgot about that. And I'm like, hey, no, because I'm not going to forget about it. But I know enough to her, like, even if it's something I desire, or let's say it's something I wanted to do that she's not down with, I love her enough to not let that be a deal breaker, because just because I want to do it doesn't mean we have to do it, right?
Yeah.
But I can say it to her and we can still be good. Like, she don't feel pressure, like, oh, now I gotta do this thing he said that he trying to do. And it's like, she knows I just said it because I want you to know this is a desire, but that doesn't mean, right, it's incumbent upon you to do that for me if you don't want to, right? If that's not something that you want to do. And so that's, like, we definitely built trust in that area. Because she definitely was the single woman of the century.
Yeah, she was.
So,
woo!
Go girl, grow. Go girl, grow.
Go girl, grow. Woo! She's a pretty
so I don't know if
lady, though.
anybody else in a relationship. I don't want to assume.
Well, it's not just about in a current relationship; it's in relationships in general.
The
like
compartmentalized part I think is key, because the things that we're comfortable with, we're okay being vulnerable about. But that's probably where it stops. There's certain aspects that I may not necessarily feel comfortable about, so I'm not gonna bring it up. Depending on the person who I'm having a conversation with, if it's my significant other, then for some reason they like asking questions that they really want the answer to, even if you're not comfortable with it. They're just gonna keep poking at you like, come on, and then you feel like you are supposed to share. which I do feel is it helps me because I'm quick to say I'm good, I'm fine, and that be that. But for somebody that actually wants to hear and listen to what I have to say and not necessarily judge or anything like that, but wants to gain a deeper understanding and knowing who I am, I have been more open and receptive to that. It ain't easy at all. And so, I think that is something that you continue to do as far as that vulnerability. I don't think it's something that just, oh, all of a sudden I'm vulnerable today and we're going to move forward forever with that same level of vulnerability. It's something that continues to grow just as you guys get more comfortable and learn each other more, and then also learning yourself more so you can be comfortable in those areas.
I was going to ask Jamal, do you feel as though being a girl dad has helped you become more vulnerable in ways that translate in the relationship context?
I don't know, because I'm a girl dad, so I've never been a boy dad, so I don't really, I don't know the difference, but my goal was to give them what I did.
Yeah, but like, I'm sorry, I don't want to go. You finish, and I got another question on to what Angie said about that.
I did want to make sure to give them what I felt that I didn't get, and kind of put off on, my father not being around. Like, so I lacked confidence growing up, and I lacked confidence probably till 30-ish, and still struggle with it and still working on it. So I wanted to make sure that they didn't struggle in that area.
Oh, they don't.
Some days I don't know. Some days I feel like it's a facade. Some days I feel like they know to put it on, so they're not vulnerable.
That's what I was going to ask you. So you're knowing you and your friend, and knowing I've seen you love your daughters. I know nobody is questioning that, but I see like you're one of those dads, like, and as just the guy, like, you talk very straightforward to your daughters. Like, your daughters, you're not sugarcoating things for them, and you're letting them know. And so on to what Angie's kind of asking you, and Ward, this is for you too, because your oldest is your daughter. It's a girl. And so did you guys see areas of yourself where you should be vulnerable more? Or did you see where girls or women can be or are naturally vulnerable in your daughter? So like, we're talking about relationships, romantic relationships, but did you have moments with your daughter where you showed her that you were vulnerable? Like, were you vulnerable ever with your daughter?
Shit. Anthony, you go ahead and handle that first.
And if not,
mine ain't that yet, or they did yet. Mine ain't that age yet.
Yeah, mine is 25. So yeah.
But even now, even with as the age where your daughter is,
that's what I'm saying. As a 25, like during her like early teenage years, I don't think like I was as vulnerable, because I felt like I wasn't the best person and I wasn't being the best dad for her. So I was definitely less vulnerable. But when she hit 18 and kind of start thinking, and it happened kind of naturally, because she's like, fool, where was you at? What was you doing? We started having those conversations, and I'm like, hey, here's what it was. And I mean, I've always been the dad to like tell her about boys, because I'm not finna let you get played. But at the same time, I still notice, right, that some of the very things that I look to take advantage of in young women as a young man were the same things that she struggled with and that men tried to take advantage of in her. And that was, our relationship or lack thereof at that point. And so, yeah, I think now we become, a lot more vulnerable, and I see, so I see as Angie calls it, my sensitivity. I see my sensitivity all in my daughter. She is like a carbon copy of me. And so as men, we don't always think like that, right? We like, our son gonna be like us. Like, no, my daughter is just like me. So I had to had to take a step back, like, man. And of course she, struggles wanting to be there for men who just want to be vulnerable with her, but don't want to be with her, right? Like, and me and her just had a great talk about that. I'm like, oh, he just looking for somebody to lay his burdens down to. He's not looking for somebody to actually be with. And so to be able to have that conversation with a 25-year-old woman, it felt weird because it was my daughter, the 25-year-old woman.
Yeah, because I want to know a little more what you mean by lay your burden down, because, you know.
No, like what we was talking about earlier, like how dudes like
want to put everything on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like
fix
dudes
this,
see a
babe.
girl
I
and
had
be
a hard
like,
day,
oh,
babe.
and they
can't
texting
do
you and they
this.
tell you their whole life story.
I'm hungry.
Then you like, what are we? And they like, oh, I was just sharing.
Wait, this ain't like that.
We cool, but we was cuddled up in my bed or laying on my couch. Your head was on my lap. Yeah, like so, like being able to talk to her about stuff like that, I was like, ooh, Jesus, it is.
I can only imagine.
Like I literally was the dudes you're talking about. So let me so it's rough.
You know, let me tell you, I honestly didn't know that dudes did that they look for people somebody just as a companion, just to talk to lay their burdens on. I honestly did not know that it's a thing. Is it really a thing?
So what I'm saying is like,
share that.
So what I'm saying, Shawana, the thing with that is that I've come to realize like that, because there are plenty of like women in my life that I know they were there for me, and I literally only got with them because I needed somebody to support what was happening on the inside of me and just to communicate what I was struggling with.
And not go any further. Like,
it does though, right? Because you man and a woman, but that wasn't your intention. My intention was just
she's not
okay,
getting
all
it.
right. So I understand it differently now. So it's like initially it was just having your homegirl to talk to.
Yeah, or even if it wasn't a homegirl, you like
or you use it as a tool.
I mean, either way, he's being vulnerable and he's being able to lay his burdens down, and no one is picking up hers.
Yeah, and I care about her. Like it's for me,
right?
And she's sitting there and she's constantly doing it. But she also, it's not just the guys that Ward's explaining or how he was, right? It takes two to tango. So she is constantly. So there's for her where she looks at his vulnerability and is like, I have to help. I have to aid. Yeah. I have to give him. He needs me. I was never that girl. I had the ones who weren't vulnerable, but I've had friends who had the ones because I ain't got time for the burden down.
I find a lot of guys are that way too. Like a sister, they trying to be, they want to help the female as well. The guys want to be that person for them, and so same thing though. It happens both ways.
It'd be a trap though. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm here for you."
It's mostly traps.
Man.
Okay, so here's my thing, because I want to respect y'all time.
Yeah.
Well, wait, I got to figure out what they was gonna say for me, because I need whoever had the question to say it again for me, because I listened to Anthony. Anthony's daughter's 25 and 18.
No, I was talking. Yeah, I was talking to you, Jamal, and you can very much, you can too. So I'm just asking, like, and if you haven't, my challenge as y'all friend and as a daughter of a Black man, to be vulnerable with your daughters, to see your daughter cry and to like sit with her for a minute, or to go to her and tell her about your day, so that like she can learn as Black girls, and you guys being Black fathers and excellent fathers, teaching our Black girls that a strong Black man will come and tell you about his day. A strong Black man will come and ask you about your day. Like Shawana just said, it's all about what's my day, but you're not going to ask me. And it's like, so the way that we want to be vulnerable with our romantic others and the way men want to, I first challenge any man who has a daughter first to try to be vulnerable with his daughter before you're trying to go out and be vulnerable with any other, if you have a daughter, before you're trying to date.
So me and my daughters have some pretty honest, open communication and conversations. Mind you, they're 11 and 13, so there's only so much that they've experienced. But my oldest is at the age of liking boys and boys like her. She just went from being Mr. Eubanks' daughter to all of a sudden I had boys like, oh man, that's the basketball girl's dad. Like I was like, when did this switch happen? But we have conversations where we'll sit and we'll talk, and I'll talk to them about their emotions. I'll talk to them about mine. The only person that has seen me cry outside of somebody close to me dying would be them once when I was like super questioning myself as like if I was doing well as a father. Just am I preparing them
Wow.
for life? Am I preparing them for what's coming? School, sports, boys, whatever the case is. But I am definitely prepared to have the conversation about making sure that they didn't find no boy that was like me at that age. That's horrible.
Yeah.
But just in general, though, like you demonstrating vulnerability to them will help them to know then how to respond to that when that's presented to them. Because I was raised with a very old school Black man who, like, being a dad means I go to work and I provide. All that emotional vulnerability stuff, like, that's your mom's job. So I never grew up seeing that. So then receiving it, I didn't know how to handle that when brought to
But
me in a
I
man, because I never saw that brought to me,
I didn't grow up
growing
seeing
up.
it either. I didn't grow up seeing it either.
I'm saying it's from the girl's side, like what that means in
Right.
terms of like
But even
us
for men,
automatically being able to handle it well.
but for men, how do we get to that point where we can be that when we've never seen it? Like I was said the last time that I think I might have kissed my father once and one of my uncles once in my life as a man, like just to show love and it was weird. And I always wondered why that was. But then, I also got to a point where I was just like, not gonna do it.
But I think that's important. Like I'm different than Angela in the extent where like my father, like my dad could kiss me and I was like okay with it, but like I was like my mom. I didn't like all the lovey-dovey stuff, but he would hug my brother. Like my brother is 6'7", about to be 30 years old, and my dad will still hug him and they'll still give each other kisses on the forehead. My dad will still kiss his father on the forehead. So I've grown up watching Black men be vulnerable and just be intimate with each other, and knowing that's okay, and that's a healthy side. And so for me as a daughter, when I have Black fathers, friends that I know, I'm like, yeah, do that with your daughter, because when we get older and like when I'm struggling with stuff now and I can think back to seeing that from my dad, it helps. Like y'all can help them even if it doesn't seem like a big deal to you later when she's 21 and trying to figure something out. Like, so for you two or anybody, any fathers that are listening, like your daughter needs to know that you cry, and needs to know that like your emotions are real, that you are a real person. Because you are, bruh. You a real person. You can hurt. It's not man feelings. They just feelings.
Party people. I'm a respecter of y'all time. And so
Okay.
here's what I want to do. We do this thing where it's called we sources, because we are sources of information and sources of help for other people that may be listening to us live right now. So I just want to go around, and if people can give resources, whether it's websites, whether it's a book you read, whatever it is, it's a strategy that you use, just help people around this topic of vulnerability. So what are some of the things that you do that have helped you get to a point of vulnerability in your life? So we're just gonna go around real quick, and you can share that with people, because I know y'all got lives to live, and I don't want to have y'all on here all night, but I want
That's
y'all to
because you outside in the dark.
I'm good. I'm good. You see my head floating, boy.
Use your you have a tablet with you, right?
Whatever.
You can use your tablet to produce
That
a source.
skin looking good. That skin
Your
looking
melanin
good. I
popping.
like that.
You have your tablet,
I like
Anthony?
that.
Do you have a
It
tablet
died,
with you?
you know. It died.
All right, resources. I would tell anybody that is watching, listening to this, inbox me. If you see me, I mean, you follow based on the handle for Instagram or whatever the case is, send me a message. I'm an open book. Well, I've gotten to that point with most stuff, not everything, but
So
yeah, go ahead.
no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, yeah. Feel free to reach out. I've definitely had some tough conversations with a lot of kids between the ages of probably 12 and 21. Somebody that became a father at 22. There's a whole lot of stuff that I wasn't ready for, expecting, didn't know how to prepare. I've had my fair share of relationships, some good, some bad, some indifferent, some my fault, they fault, our fault, or just outgrew each other. So whatever I can give from my own lived experience, I'm willing, usually, for the most part.
Hey, babe, pop it up there so they can see his email.
What is your
So
email?
they can.
My Instagram handle is
His
on
name.
there.
His name.
My,
Okay.
but my email is jeubie22@gmail.com.
Do you want me to put that
And
up, or is your Instagram handle
you
sufficient?
you can either one. Hell, matter of fact, put my website on there.
Matter of fact, his social is
Solutions.com. Don't do that part.
Remember,
It's too many people out here that like doing credit card scams and stealing cars and stuff. But
So what's
my website is eubanksolutions.com.
okay? And I was gonna say, to make fun of what we were talking about before, this isn't a shoot your shot invitation, because we did talk
No.
about how vulnerability can lead to things, but it's like legit. you
yeah.
know.
Don't inbox me. Ain't no numbers. Don't inbox Jamal. There's not no dating site.
I said for males that need to, them too. Don't shoot your shot with me neither. There we go. That was a better way to put it. You right. Y'all right. You right.
You know what? This is still
Eubank
Pride Month, sir.
Solutions.
It's still Pride
Look,
Month.
here's my shout out. Here's my shout out. And I'm not on the book deal, even though he should put me on the book deal. But I have this book. This is one of my favorite books, and one of my favorite
Oh, I
pastors.
just heard about that one.
And so let me tell y'all something. He came out with his sermon 2.5 years ago. Shawan and I had a conversation, this and that, and I remember, yep. Broke out with a dude off the sermon, y'all. After done, it was a wrap. Relationship was like not happening. So be careful, because you open this, you learn some stuff and you change the way you live. But Pastor Michael Todd is dope.
Put it up there one more time.
Mine
Darren,
is
put it up
definitely
there.
in the work. Mine is in the work too, though. I'm
Jamal, I got you too when your book come out. I like doing book deals.
I've definitely been working. Like I literally spent 8 hours today working on it, formatting it, and sending it to certain publishers. I got a meeting July 8th for the next steps. So that's definitely coming. It's got the activities to go along with it, and it's stuff that you can repeat over and over. I've already have an idea for a volume 2 of it. So Determination to Succeed is on the way. It's coming.
Volume 2. All right. What you got, Shawana?
what? Okay, so give me the question again. I was all lost with all that's happening on here. What's the question
Your
again?
resource. Give us all your resource, your handles. Let us know when your show is
When it comes to what? Just vulnerability or just everything? Anything?
Your sources.
Yeah, just your sources of moving, like leaving from out of here.
Oh, okay, just my stuff. Okay, so I'm doing something. I'm currently working on a project called Live Your Brand, right? And that's really being intentional about empowering every area of your life. You know, a lot of times we focus so much on our future and our career, our jobs, our work, you know, especially as entrepreneurs. You know, it's like, this is what we need to focus on. You're not going to be successful in this area if your health life isn't right, your love life isn't right, your family life isn't right. You know, so all of these, you know, areas that we try to compartmentalize, you know, we got to kind of make these things right in order for each thing to prosper. So basically, Live Your Brand is teaching that, and it's nurturing all these different areas of your life in order to succeed in everything, so that you can financially succeed, and so that your business can succeed and that it can grow and flourish. It's called Live Your Brand. Basically, you can find me on my Instagram handle is there, but it's ShawannaCashel.com. And so everything is on there. I do live IGs, been doing it for a while. It's amazing. I have a sisterhood series that's on Sundays. I have a brotherhood series that's on Wednesdays. Basically, it's just sisters and brothers sharing that are impacting the world using their God-given talents. Anthony, you're going to be on the show because we just talked about this. Very excited about what I've been doing. COVID has been really heightening my creativity, and God is just good. So that's
all the time.
I've got a new course that's out. So if you're thinking about branding and building your business, it's like a foolproof course, something that I've learned. It increased sales in my company 60% in literally 4 months. You know, I've been in marketing. I'm a brand strategist. I've been marketing and advertising for the past 20 years, you know, and so just kind of getting all of my resources, putting everything together in this one package to help people grow their business. I'm a giver, and so I like to give as much as I can. So check me out online. You can find me on, you know, anywhere, Shawanna Cashel, all my social handles.
Yeah.
Come on, executive producer, what you got?
Well, more about for me, well, the handle is my Instagram. It's personal stuff on there, but feel free to follow me. But it's more so the things that I try to tap into to like help with my own like just growth. So I'm a big on like mental health. So Therapy for Black Girls is a podcast and website that I like listen to religiously. They are so good in kind of breaking down like things to help support the positive mental health and well-being of Black women. And it really applies to anyone, but she does want to target Black women. And then also another podcast that I'm a big fan of is called The Love Hour, because I'm trying to learn how to do this like relationship marriage thing in a way that maybe I haven't seen before. So they have all sorts of expert guests from marriage counselors to like social workers to sexologists to the list goes on that talk about a range of topics that are so good. So those two resources I would definitely encourage you guys to check out.
Check it out.
Last but not least, sir,
Yeah.
what are yours?
So, you know what I'm saying? Me, what I would say, what I do is write. I write a lot because I'm into music. So I would say that has always been a way for me to get off some of the frustration, some of the disappointment, some of the negative feelings that I deal with. And just as you introduced me to therapyforblackmen.org. So that's therapy, yes, therapy for blackmen.org. That's a good place to visit. Let me see. Having mentors. Make sure you got somebody that's older than you that have been through some things. Because I believe in this life we should be being pulled up as we pull someone up. So and if that's the way we approach it, everybody's connected because if somebody's being pulled up, somebody's pulling somebody up, and that way we're all connected. So and then all of that good stuff. So I'm gonna end the show out by starting out shout outs. Shout out to my executive producer. Let me see, man. I knew I was gonna point the wrong way. This direction over here. My executive producer. Shout out to Angie. Shout out to my executive producer. Shout out to all the guests who are on the show today. I appreciate y'all giving y'all time, giving your voice, helping us to get one step closer to being healthy Black men, being more just well-rounded, just better humans in general. So shout out to all the guests that came on the show today. So Jamal, who you shouting out, man? Go ahead.
Oh man, I wanted to shout out one of my friends in Detroit, Alan White, who is promoting the No Deadbeats Allowed as far as fathers go. I had a shirt on maybe a week or two. I posted on Facebook. I also want to shout out myself because I haven't worked or felt this good about the work that I've did on a day for myself in so long that like I said, I spent probably 8 hours today grinding, working, trying to do whatever I can to push this book out as soon as possible. And so, yeah, I just want to thank everybody that contributed and the ones that tuned in and chimed in. I did respond to some of the messages on Facebook page or posts. So, yeah, I'm just thankful to take some information from everybody that shared today as well.
Shawana.
Yeah, shout outs to you guys. This was amazing to be a part of this panel with all of you. I know each and every one of you except for Jamal. So we're gonna be friends. I just friended you on Facebook too. On Instagram. So we're gonna stay connected. Yeah, I saw your friend request come in too. So and that's how it's supposed to be. We're just all supposed to stay connected. I'm grateful for the conversation. It was deep, it was fun, it was exciting. I got a lot of information out of this. Thank you so much. Stuff that I just didn't know, and my thinking has been changed once again. Yes, Jamal, once again, I've changed my thinking, but because of you guys. Anthony, thank you for the invite. Angela, I love you. Darian, thank you. Love you, girl. And look forward to seeing both of y'all soon.
Probably me before Angela, but yeah. So she's still on there.
I was just saying, Angela.
Go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, same kind of what she said. Like, shout out to all of y'all. It's really crazy. Like I said, I know each and every one of you, but I did not meet y'all through each other. And it's crazy that never what I thought when I met each and every one of you that I would ever be doing this, but this is what I love. This is what I need. Like I said, I'm on here also to talk, but more just to kind of hear y'all input. You guys are all people I've come to for advice. I love doing this with you. I'm honored to do this with y'all. Shout out to y'all families, y'all kids, y'all spouses for helping you guys be as amazing as you guys are. And yeah,
You
anybody
got any
else?
shout outs, babe?
I was going to say shout out to you guys. You all are dope. I appreciate the conversation. Shout out to those who are popping in and out listening and contributing in the comments. And last but not least, shout out to Gary Gibson, my Black licensed contractor in Richmond, Virginia, who's getting the job done so I can come back home. So shout out to him.
Come on now,
as well.
Gary. Come on, Gary. Gary. Hey, so panelists, we gonna say goodbye to Facebook, but I want y'all to just hold on for like 5 minutes after we're not live anymore. Just real quick, but Facebook, we appreciate y'all. Share the video, start a conversation. We appreciate it, and y'all have a good night. So, peace.
Good night.